Hey guys, welcome back. Looks like we have more middleman issues. This has been a while now that this information has been available, that this sort of scam has taken place. Looking at Marx Cards, I wasn't totally sure I was going to cover it because it's not especially Pokemon based, and I don't want to branch out too far and stretch myself or my resources thin. But I think it's important. I think it's important because this is another instance where lessons can be taken from this and translated into Pokemon, into anything collectibles, especially in this market. I think we need to really take all of this into consideration and use this knowledge to protect ourselves, to protect each other, and just whether or not the initial intent is a scam, it ends up turning into one. So, all right. It hasn't happened too often on the channel, at least not yet, but we have to give props to PSA for this one, and we'll see why later on. I think they're handling the situation extremely well. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Marx Cards situation or scam, they're a middleman service for PSA. People paid them the grading fees. They sent the cards to PSA. They did not pay PSA, and now they are declaring bankruptcy. So what happened with all that money? Did they spend it on other stuff? Is it because now the market's coming down on a lot of this stuff that they just decided they were going to keep the money and declare bankruptcy for that reason, just escape with what they can? Who knows? Did they spend it on stuff that they thought was going to go up in value, but it didn't? And in turn, they spent their customers' money essentially, and instead of paying it directly to PSA for the fees, where the funds were intended. So I don't know. I think we're going to see a whole lot more of this with the market returning to normal in terms of middlemen, your grading companies, which are, most of them are going to be temporary. I'm not going to say that all of them are, but the large majority of them are going to jump ship, whether it be stores, brick and mortar stores, grading companies, middlemen. A lot of them only exist because of the market conditions, with the pandemic and everything else. It was a reason to get in because it was free money. If you had Pokemon product at the high, even brand new product, you could immediately make a ton of money off of all that sealed stuff. You can't anymore. You won't be able to in the future when the market returns to a normal state. So just like they came in when the money was there, now that the money's not, or now that the money won't be, see you later. All these pop-up shops. So Marx Cards is the perfect example of this. I think their grand opening was in April of 2021, so not even a year old. How they were able to rack up $1 million worth of fees without paying them with PSA is probably a mistake on PSA's part. And we'll see that they're going to change the structure of this middleman stuff in general. I think it's very dangerous because even if they're approved, even if they're trusted, in this case they were trusted obviously because they had customer cards, sent them away, didn't pay for them, spent the money elsewhere. Who knows what they did with the money, spent it on other stuff. And that's the thing. There's a lot of these guys, they're not in it for the right reasons. Maybe they like the cards, but when they're talking about money all the time, and all you have to do is go to their YouTube channel, and they're constantly talking about how much money someone can make. Jacob, you got Mealy Pops and Collectible Guru vibes, where they're just constantly talking about, even if they're selling someone something, they're talking about how much money the person's going to make that's buying it. It's big time red flag. That you should never be buying something with the premise that it's going to go up in value, especially not immediately. Will stuff go up in value? Typically. Should you buy with that intention? Sure. But they're just blowing smoke up your ass for the most part. These hype boys 69 420s, whatever you want to call them, they're scumbags. That's pretty much as simple as you can put it. They're looking to sell you something with the premise that it's going to go up in value. It doesn't always go up in value. Now that stuff's going to go down in value. We're going to see a whole lot of this. And so this is another instance where we have a middleman that does not have the appropriate funding. If they did, this would be a non-issue because the money that was allocated or that was supposed to go to the grading service with PSA would have gone there instead of wherever else it went. If it went into buying pizza, if it went into buying other inventory for their store that they thought was going to go up in value and they could flip it while the PSA payment was on hold, not really on hold, but before it had to be made. So what strikes me as really, really weird is the fact that they haven't even taken the PSA drop off and pick up stuff off their website. Obviously, they're not on good terms with PSA or their customers that sent PSA cards to them. So hopefully they're not actually accepting any more submissions. And I'm surprised that PSA hasn't sent them some sort of legal document telling them to get this off their website. Because obviously, if you're PSA, you don't want anything to do with Marx Cards. They're scammers, essentially. No matter how you put it. They're scamming because the funds that were paid by customers did not get transferred to the location that they should be. Whether or not they had good or bad intentions, different story. But at the same time, that money should be set aside or should be going straight to PSA. Same thing with their Instagram here. Looks like it's been 4 weeks since they posted anything. But the fact that they have PSA still on there, PSA headquarters drop off, I think they should probably get rid of that. So here we have it. PSA is going to step up and be the good guy here in the situation. And we'll read their official statement. This was from January 21st, 2022. And then we'll get into some of the CrowdPorn posts on Instagram to flesh out the details exactly. We can do a little bit of speculating based on that. But a large amount of the information is available, so let's get to it. This is an unfortunate incident, and our top priority is protecting the collectors who may have been impacted by the bankruptcy of Marx Cards. We are currently requesting detailed account information from Marx Cards for the impacted orders still at PSA with the express goal of returning cards to the rightful owners as soon as possible. We will not be charging customers for the return of their cards other than shipping. As of yet, we have not received payment from Marx Cards to grade the cards in our possession, and as a result of this incident, we will be making changes to our group submitter requirements, including a new order upfront deposit and more robust policies around late payments. We will also be requiring all group submitters to bring their accounts current in order to continue service with us. We ask for patience while we sort through this expensive and labor-intensive process with the end goal of being the return of cards to their rightful owners. If you have submitted cards to Marx Cards that you believe to be at PSA, please email with Marx Cards in the subject line. So there you go. Awesome. Good statement. And then we'll take a look at the post here by CrowdPorn on Instagram. We'll read through those. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the middleman stuff, for the most part, is not even close to necessary. If you don't want to take the time to learn how to submit your own cards, maybe you shouldn't be grading them. Again, it's just extra risk. And with this, we had, not only did we have a middleman submitting to PSA, but we also had other middlemen submitting to middlemen to submit to PSA. So you're putting so many steps along the line where everyone's trying to get a little cash out. And you're just asking for something to go wrong. Now, should a customer necessarily know that? No. And a lot of these hype boy 420s are going to make a name for themselves. They're going to get people to endorse them and everything else, so they can put on this mask of like, oh, we're the greatest and most reliable people. But here you see it. No, they're not. They aren't. You shouldn't trust them. You shouldn't really trust anything that's pumped up in 2020, 2021, when the only incentive there is essentially money. You're asking for a bad time. So even if there are grading companies that have recently come up and you believe in them, proceed with caution, because it could be the same thing. They could go bankrupt. They could have your cards on hand. You might not get them back. Who knows? Stuff could get stolen. They don't have the correct insurance. The place could burn down accidentally, and you don't get your cards back. If it's not covered, if they're bankrupt, whatever. All sorts of bad things that can happen, especially with a downturn in the market, which we'll almost certainly see. I'm not saying anything's going to zero, but market conditions will at some point return to somewhat normal state where you can't, quadruple your money every day, all day. So we have CrowdPorn here, who says, we've been speaking at length with PSA in light of the Marx and gems only issues, and we can report the following updates. As with all things as messy as this, there are some good news and some not so good news. The good news, Marx customers, PSA has agreed to grade all cards submitted by Marx free of charge as a once-off goodwill gesture. Customers will still have to pay any upcharges and associated shipping fees to return the cards back to them as per normal, but the grading fees themselves will be covered by PSA free of charge. So I don't think there's anything that's been stated, or maybe they can't make a statement on it yet, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that there's going to be some sort of PSA going after Marx Cards rather than the customers, which I think is a great thing. And it's something that you wouldn't be able to see with another grading company. If it's a smaller grading company, they're not going to be able to be like, oh, you know what? Oopsie doopsie, 1 million. We're going to take that hit and we'll go after Marx Cards rather than, the customer just getting boned and either having to pay the fees twice. So just imagine if this happened with one of the new grading companies. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to be able to do this? Do you think they're going to be able to rectify this situation? So this is the advantage, and I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I hate PSA or whatever, but this is one of the advantages of going with one of the bigger companies. One of the ones that have been around a while. One of the companies that has funding allocated to be able to do something like this. Unlike certain other ones, certain other middleman services, that if your stuff gets lost, they have to rely on insurance. PSA, I'm sure, has great insurance, but also at the same time, they're going to have funding or funds available to rectify situations like this. Not only that, here, it's not like they can necessarily go through insurance. I don't know how this would work exactly, but if they have to go after the money through Marx Cards, that could take a very long time. It could take a legal battle, and customers would have to wait just an insane amount of time if that was the only way they were going to retrieve money. So, Gems Only customers. Unfortunately, Gems Only is in a slightly different boat to Marx. Not only were Gems Only delinquent in paying PSA fees as they fell due, but they were also banned altogether from submitting to PSA several months ago due to submitting a high number of altered cards. So now you run into issues where Gems Only was banned from PSA, but now they're submitting through the middleman. So like this whole middleman process and situation, it just creates bad things. Bad things are bound to happen. People are going to sneak in submissions, hide submissions that way if they were banned elsewhere. This is why Gems Only was using other middlemen group submitters to submit their cards to PSA on their behalf. Nobody is suggesting that Gems Only was altering cards itself, But to maintain the integrity of the process, PSA has a policy that if anyone submits an unusually high number of suspect and or altered cards, they get banned from submitting cards to PSA altogether. So I think this is a little bit of a legal statement here. There's a good chance if you got banned, you submit so many that you are suspect of doing it yourself. And to an extent, you should probably have to submit your own cards for that reason, because if you're submitting group submissions and people are sneaking in altered cards, unless you can have like documentation to say who was submitting the cards through the middleman, there's got to be some sort of process in place to avoid that, because that's creating a headache. Because if they do get graded, then there's the financial guarantee that PSA has to pay out, which only typically gets worse over time as the cards get more expensive. But then you have customers as well that they want the PSA graded cards because they know there's a better chance of them being authentic. So it's a mess. It's definitely a mess, and we'll see how it plays out exactly. PSA reiterates that if collectors don't want to submit cards themselves, why not? It's a great way to learn about cards. They should only use someone who is a preferred PSA group submitter to do so. We have provided a link to find those people below. Again, it's not that hard to submit cards. I don't grade cards, but that's the thing. It's like anyone in the hobby, whether it be Pokemon or sports or whatever, that's always asking for other people's advice. Don't invest in Pokemon cards or sports cards or whatever if you don't know what you're looking. If you don't have the initiative to actually look the stuff up and learn about it, I get it. Everyone's new at some point and you have to learn a lot. There's a lot into any of these collectible markets. But if you don't want to take the initiative to learn, it's not for you. That's just kind of how it goes. I mean, in general, people shouldn't really be submitting cards right now anyway, unless they're looking to resell them, because where the market is coming back down now, by the time you get your cards back, the raw card that you sent in is probably going to be more expensive than what comes back. With the odd exception that you end up with 10s or something like that. So all things to take into consideration, all things that require a lot of time spent learning, you're not going to win on every purchase, even if you are doing it for the investment part of things. Sometimes things go down in value that you purchased, and when you purchase it, you just have to be happy with that going in. You have to be happy with the price as it is, knowing that it could go down in value. Chances are over time it's going to go up and it's not going to matter anyway. So unless you're quick flipping, it's basically a non-issue. Notwithstanding the above, PSA has agreed to honor the historic published card grading prices to collectors who submitted cards using gems only. So if you submitted cards via gems only and the rate at the time was published $10 book sub rate, PSA will honor that rate now. So it'll be interesting to see. So if people, that's where you get into a mess too, because if people were sending the gems only to send, it's just like a trail of like how many people need to touch these cards before they go put plastic over top of them. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just learn how to submit the cards yourself. Make sure that you have the insurance, the appropriate insurance on your shipment to PSA, and you should have a much better time. Much less to worry about. You don't have to worry about anyone declaring bankruptcy, any of the 7 people that keep handing your cards off to other people. I think Card Collector 2 was in the same boat where he was sending to Marx, but then people didn't know that there was another middleman after the middleman. Absolutely ridiculous. The not so good news. Hundreds of customers have been affected by the Marx and gems only mess. PSA predict that it's approximately 50,000 cards. Oh my God. PSA now need to determine which cards belong to who, and this will take some time. They were not able to advise us how long this will take, but will let us know when they do. PSA said that affected customers can help speed up the process by emailing PSA specific information about their card order if it was sent via Marx or gems only. See the following slides for the required information. The information can be emailed to Jackie. So, yeah. So even worse, this Marx Cards that's going to basically bone all these people in order to, spend their money on something other than the reason people paid for these grading fees, spend it on something else, and then go missing, go quiet, and not even have the integrity to share the details with PSA on the actual orders themselves to make sure that everything's going to go back to the right person. Even worse, shows what kind of character you are. It shows that you're another one of these hype boys that were in it for the money, and now you're gone. Good riddance, but to do this to people on your way out, pretty terrible. Information for group submitters. To avoid this mess from ever happening again, PSA are requiring that group submitters pay a 50% deposit when they submit cards to PSA from now on, 50% of the order fees. PSA will also be very stringent about late payments. Late payments could result in an immediate ban. PSA are introducing a no middleman group submission rule. If a group submitter gets caught middlemaning a sub via another group submitter, they will have their account immediately banned. I think that's a great idea. I almost think to an extent that none of this payment should actually go to the middleman itself. I think if you want to have an improved middleman, they get paid a commission and all the fees go directly to PSA, who can then say, okay, you as a middleman get 10%, get 20% or whatever they want to pay out to these people for gathering these submissions. So I guess without even saying like the matter of whether they're going to go bankrupt or not, there's still that many more hands that are touching your cards that could potentially swap them out. Anything like that. I'm not saying everyone that's middleman in cards is sketchy enough to do something like that. But if you don't even know that there are additional middlemen touching your cards, you never know. It could be somewhere along the line. And if there's no record taken, or if they keep shipping them, if your middleman ships to another middleman, ships to another middleman, ships to PSA, then PSA ships back to them. Like, man, that's just like so many extra chances for things to get lost in the mail, stolen in the mail, stolen from any of the locations of these chain middlemen. Just bad, all around bad. So it looks like it's still going to be some time before we receive our cards back. Yep, we have cards stuck in this mess too, but it will be eventually sorted out. To check out the list of PSA preferred subbers, go here. So here we have an email, Marx Cards /PSA and gems only. To provide you with an update, we just received documentation from their bankruptcy attorney this past Friday evening. So now the matching up and verification of submission and submitter information against incoming emails will begin. As part of this process, we'll also be checking that stage submissions are at and what the next steps will be. In the meantime, it would be helpful to obtain the following: photo ID, confirm that you submitted direct to Marx Cards and not another group submitter that then submitted to Marx Cards. If another group submitter, please provide a name. Please keep in mind that this will all be very time consuming given the number of impacted customers, so we ask for some patience while we sort it out. We'll stay in communication with you throughout this entire process. Thank you, Jackie. So that's it, guys. I mean, I've warned about the other grading companies, the brand new grading companies that are basically just exist because of the market conditions. The chances of these people actually, just happening to create a grading company as they pop up, this middleman stuff, all of this stuff, just be patient. Just avoid it if you can. If there's one that you really like, hold off. Let them prove themselves. Let them prove that they'll be here after the hype dies down. Then go. If you're keeping the cards, there's no reason that you need to grade them right away. The other grading companies are probably going to add in a normal market little to no value to your card. But if you're okay with that, by all means. But there's a lot of bad stuff that's going to come in the future, in the near future, probably whenever we see a decrease in the market, whenever we see the backlog at PSA, at BGS, CGC, we're going to see a lot of this stuff. We're going to see a lot of people jumping ship. They're going to be getting out, and people are going to be affected in the process. So just hold tight. You don't need to grade the cards right away if you're holding on to them. If you do want to grade cards, that's great. The prices should also be a lot more competitive. As the market stabilizes and returns to normal and the backlog is gone, they'll be able to hopefully come back down to where they were originally. Patience, guys, patience. You're in it be in it for the long term. That's how you're going to make out all right. But don't fall victim to the FOMO. If you guys haven't already, join the Discord. It's a great time. It's growing every day. Shout out to everybody in there. See you next time.